Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. Our OP's neighbor is the president of the HOA board and says he has the authority to tell people to leave the communal property. Seems like he's wrong and just on a power trip. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. Crazy neighbors calling cops on delivery guys. We belong to an HOA in Virginia where we share a communal driveway back to our individual houses, which are set back from the street. The driveway to our HOA community is not gated off but has markings that it's private property and not to trespass. Some of my neighbors think that anyone who's not a resident should not be able to drive down this shared driveway to our houses. This specifically includes Uber drivers, the FedEx, UPS guy, any utilities people that need to come onto the property to service a house, etc. The vast majority of the time, they're here less than 5 minutes doing their deliveries. My neighbors want anyone here for a delivery to park on the public street, then walk down the driveway, get a dolly, and dolly down the driveway any deliveries, which understandably is a huge pain in the butt for delivery folks. They're calling the cops whenever the UPS, FedEx, USPS person comes to deliver a package. Have complained to any corporate about them trespassing. Yes, they've called UPS, FedEx, and USPS to complain. The FedEx guy has actually come to my house and asked if he can have permission to use the driveway, as I've gotten heavy packages delivered before and I don't want to make him have to walk all the way down the driveway carrying it. I told him he has my permission, but my neighbors continue to call the cops and complain to corporate whenever he drives down our driveway to my house to drop off a package. There is nothing concerning this in our HOA policy, although one of the neighbors who constantly complains is the president of the HOA board. I'm not sure how he's allowed to unilaterally decide they aren't allowed to do this if they have my permission. The cops have come every time, 4 times in the past 6 months, and usually say this is a private matter and leave. Our cops apparently have time to spare. Well, either police will keep coming and keep telling my neighbors the same thing, or they'll stop responding. But either way, I can't stop them from calling. And our second story. Why do I need to watch your kids at a convention? I'm a big war games player, and a local store used to buy tickets and rent a bus to bring people to a Games Workshop convention in Baltimore, Games Day. The cost they charge covers the bus and a one-day ticket. The only caveat is that kids under 18, 16 with a note, and an older buddy had to have at least one adult with them who was also paying full entry, on the idea that the parent would stay with their child. This was made explicit in following years. Now, the convention was located in the prime shopping area of the Baltimore waterfront, so every year there are a few parents who come to go shopping. Usually, though, they have a few other parents who agree to watch the younger ones, though. The year this took place, my friend Hal and I ended up going. Keep in mind that we're both in our mid-20s. So as we go through our morning at the convention, we noticed that a familiar group of boys were following us. When asked, we were told we should stay with you two because you're responsible. None of their parents were in sight, or on the site as it turns out. Most of them were cool, at least as cool as a 10-year-old can be to someone in their mid-20s. Ages were from 8 to 16. We ended up grouping them up with an older kid as an assistant buddy, and we took them with us. It's not like their parents were around for us to give them back after all, and we knew most of them from the shop, made sure they got turns at the different events, nothing at the convention could be called inappropriate, and generally made the best of it. But hey, we were still a bit angry at having them foisted on us without being asked. Well, it turns out none of them were given enough money for lunch. They had their own money, which they spent on swag, but the cash their parents gave them wasn't enough to cover an actual lunch at the convention all. It averaged about $3 per kid, which was the price of a soda. So Hal and I took all of their lunch cash and took them to Hooters. Used that money and some of our own to make sure the waitresses were extra attentive and had them at their own table. We sat nearby to keep an eye on them, had them order whatever they wanted that a kid could legally get, no booze of course. And between the restaurant being mostly dead and the fact that Hal and I were tipping well, meant there were buxom, scantily clad women around constantly. Almost a 2-to-1 ratio, kid to waitress. They must have eaten 5 platters of wings before they were through, not including the ones they ordered but didn't like, usually because it was too spicy. Those got bagged up into a cooler bag. told them it wasn't an issue, just order something they did like. At the end, we picked up the tab, but not before calling the trip organizer, Jim, to let him know what happened. Was told it wouldn't be an issue, give him a receipt. So we get the group scrubbed up, helped by the assistant buddies, and back to the convention and finish the afternoon. So we got back to the bus and gave Jim the receipt for lunch, as well as any other necessary items, mostly beverages. Got to keep hydrated, that we bought them afterwards. Just for them, not our bills. We paid for our lunch separately, for example. The bus was set to leave at 6 p.m., and we were told to be back by 5 p.m. just in case, because the trip would leave full or not. So around 5:30, the parents start coming back in, only to meet Jim at the front. He refused to let them on until they paid us back for watching their kids, told them that if they didn't pay by 6, the bus would be leaving, and that they would still owe the tab. One parent asked for a delay to hit an ATM and was granted permission to go. Jim told the rest that the bus would leave when that dad got back. A few other parents asked to see the bill, which is where they discovered that we took their precious angels to Hooters. Never mind the fact that we were at a convention about a game where people kill aliens with chainswords. Jim informed them that if they had spoken to Hal and I before the convention started, then maybe they would have learned about our lunch plans and could have watched their kids themselves. Didn't shut up the few Karens in the group, but it reduced most of it to grumbling. About this point, the first dad came back and asked his share, was told, and left most of the parents in shock. They apparently didn't have that much cash still on them, and Jim wasn't going to give them any more time. Pay up and board or stay behind and pay later. The first dad offered to lend money to the rest. Not a guy you want to owe money to, from what I gather, with some accepting, the rest finding cash in purses and wallets. Jim ended up handing us $500, almost $200 for the chicken, and the rest he charged them as a kidtainment fee. And our last story. HOA fining me $22,000 for not being the primary resident while deployed to the Middle East for 11 months. July 2017. Closed on a home in California, knowing about a possible mobilization. Worked with a realtor to find a place that would allow me to rent or have a roommate if necessary, since I'm single without any family in the area. Read and signed all the governing laws prior to closing, including rental clause. August 2017, received mobilization orders for beginning of October 2017, found a girl who wanted to rent and was indifferent about renting whole place or one room, set up a lease in line with governing laws, sent it to HOA management company. They get back to me saying I can't rent because it's in violation of an amendment. I review all governing laws and amendments from title company, and there's no amendment that they're talking about. I explain I never received the amendment, and this was later on proven early in 2018 with email confirmation, and I'm deploying and need to rent it out to have someone care for it. The management company official I spoke to was empathetic and told me to write a letter to the board of directors. I write the letter and email it. A couple of days later, I get an email back saying they convened the board and denied my request. I asked to speak to the BOD directly to understand their stance and represent myself per their governing laws, and get no response. 2 weeks later, I get an email saying my community's changing HOA management companies. I call the new company and tell them my situation and send them all old email traffic. I leave for pre-mobilization training, and a couple of weeks later, 1 week prior to deployment, get an email from a lawyer saying they'll approve my variance request for $3,000. I told them I'm getting JAG involved to represent me while deployed, as I will not have reliable service. In the meantime, I moved my renter/friend in as a roommate with a roommate lease, since the issue was primary residency, and kept the master in the home as my primary residence to not be in violation of the amendment I never received. I told the new management company I moved her in hopes of getting this worked out. October to December 2017, JAG went back and forth with their lawyer, but nothing was resolved. My lawyer got sick and stopped responding to both me and their lawyer. I contacted the California JAG office and was assigned a new lawyer. I got an email from HOA saying I was in violation of the law and unresponsive and would be fined up to $50 per day until resolved. Them knowing well I was deployed in Iraq. January to April 2018, my new JAG lawyer worked with their lawyer slowly and prepared to represent me at a quarterly board meeting in April. He represented me at the meeting, and I received an email from their lawyer after saying they were unsympathetic to my situation and I now owe them $22,000 for legal fees for their lawyer and for violations. April. An alternative resolution was met, which was to propose the title company pay. The title company, per California legislation, claimed no liability. This has been the biggest financial stress throughout my deployment, and I feel bullied and belittled by my HOA management company and their lawyer, who still have yet allowed me to talk to the board of directors directly. So I decided to allow them to take me to court for the fees. I then took all the documentation that I have and the communications, etc., that they have given me and allowed them to try and present evidence of fees and fines that they're charging me that do not exist from what I've explained. Also, I went to discuss these thoughts with my JAG officer. He was brilliant. Without proof of the fees and fines they were charging me for, it was unlikely they can win for the fees and fines, so in the end, I didn't pay them a penny. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.